Now this first question is an important question. The question says ERM framework identifies risks and opportunities to protect the business and provide values for stakeholders. Okay, now they're just trying to elaborate the question by saying who's the stakeholder, customers, owners, regulators. Okay, briefly explain all the components of ERM. Now the question here is all the components of ERM. Okay, so that's the main question. That's the line you have to read, components of ERM. Now, if you remember in your chapter number 1, ERM concept was a thing that you studied about enterprise risk management, right? Yeah. Enterprise risk management. Whenever you talk about risk, there are a few terms you need to use. For example, identify the risk, okay? And then devise policies or practices to mitigate the risk. So identifying the risk and mitigating the risk. So that is the basic framework of what is ERM. Okay, now to understand what are the components of ERM, there are 8 components of ERM. There are 8 components of ERM, right? So to remember this answer, yeah, in EIS, the only tricky part is to remember the answer. That's the tricky part, right? Otherwise, if you remember what it is, it's very easy to write. It's very easy to write, and you can let me know if there's some disturbance or in the audio or video. I will rectify.
No, it's okay. It's okay, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So it's mostly about remembering the answer, right? Now here, components of ERM. Now the current situation. Are you from Chennai, Ishka?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. The current situation in Chennai is about floods. Okay. So now, if I was to tell you that Ishak, you're appointed as the Chief Minister of Chennai, and how you are going to identify what are the problems that are occurring because of the floods and what are the strategies you're going to devise to rectify that. Now, in that framework of you being the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, you need to think, what's the first step that you're going to do to mitigate the risk of floods from happening in the city, right? So first, just 2 lines about what is ERM. In every answer, you need to first write some 2 or 3 lines explaining what the concept is, and then go in the concept, then go into the final answer. So now this question is the first introductory part. It's saying that it consists of 8 components, and that deals with what, like for example, identifying the risk and policies to mitigate the risk. Policies to mitigate the risk. Now, what are these components? First, you're going to see the internal environment of your state. Internal environment means, now if you know areas like Paris and those old areas that were built with some planning in that period, so those areas don't really get flooded, right? Yes. But if you see other low-lying areas or newly come up areas that are made with little lesser planning, those areas get flooded. So first, your internal environment, you have to study that to understand that which areas are more likely to get affected, and only then you can devise strategies. Like for example, you have to have those water taking out motor pumps, or you have to have people, right? You're going to do that only in areas which are more likely to be affected by the rains, So first step would be that you study your internal environment. In studying the internal environment, the thing or the word is risk appetite. Risk appetite means that how much of risk can I take? So even in a company, I need to understand what is the risk that the company can take. If you do not know that, then it's impossible to go to the next step. For example, even you as a CA student, okay? So now you will know that, okay, my favorite subject is practical subject. So I don't have to work so much, but towards theory, I'm a little reluctant. I find it boring. So I need to spend more hours on that. Right, so you first will try to assess yourself, and then you will devise the strategies. So formula number 1 is internal environment. Got it? Internal environment. Let us read that quickly. The internal environment encompasses the tone of an organization and sets the basis for how risk is viewed and addressed by the organization. Okay, and it includes finding out what is the management's philosophy and what is the risk appetite of the organization. All the ethical values, all the controls that can have, and one more important thing in this thing is the people in the organization. Yeah. So for example, if you're analyzing yourself, you will see, okay, my teachers in this subject, my teachers are very strong, so I don't have to really worry much about them. I can leave it on that. In some subjects, I'm doing a self-study, so I need to concentrate more. Okay, so even in your case or the floods case or any company's case, the core of any company is the people around. Yeah, so the company coexists with the people that are there in the company. So you need to know how efficient your people are. Like, for example, uh, um, as a chief minister, if you want to really complete the problems of flood, you need to hire really, really courageous people at the floor. Yeah, at where the areas of flood, where they can take quick actions, quick decisions, and they are very, very tough. You need to hire such people. You can't hire laid back people or lazy people, right? So that people will form your internal environment. So two things in internal environment: one is risk appetite and one is people.
People. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, two things under the first point of internal environment. If you're okay with that, we'll move to the second.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the second point is objective setting. When I say objective setting, I mean to say that, okay, now as a chief minister, you're going to put down an objective saying that I want Chennai to be flood free. And I want, in case the water gets collected, I want the water to go into a stream, river, or some line where it does not affect the people, does not affect the people, right? So you're going to set your objectives. So first you're going to understand your environment. Okay, there are some problem areas. Okay, there is some low-lying areas, say for example, Velachery, yeah, or Gindi, I don't know. So there are some low-lying areas. I need to fix those areas. So once you understand your internal environment, you can set an objective. Now my objective is going to be that these low-lying areas, I need to protect it more. I need to give more attention to those areas, right? So objective setting. And now your objective in an organization is based on your mission and vision statement. It's based on your mission and vision statement, right? Third is event identification. So now you have set your objectives. Third, you need to find out what are the possible events, or like, for example, how much is the rainfall, like above which, if it goes above 1.5 days, if the rainfall goes, I need to take immediate action. So you need to find out the event. Or if there is some sewage blockage in certain areas, then I need to immediately take some actions. So you need to identify the events that could happen where you need to take relevant actions. Now, how, let us read this event identification. Potential events have an impact on the entity and they should be identified. And how will you identify that? How it affects the strategy implementation and effect and achievement of your objective. Remember, the objective was that all the low-lying areas should be protected, should be given more protection. Yeah. So your event identification should revolve around that. And one more thing which is very important in event identification is opportunities and threats. Okay, so some events may prove as an opportunity for some people and the threat for some other people. For example, take the situation of Corona or lockdown. Yeah, so lockdown was a threat for many industries. But if you look at the telecom or the IT industry like Zoom or your other apps that came during this period, the Ludo or your
Google Meet.
Google Meet. Yeah. So all these apps got a boom during the same lockdown. So this situation is a threat for someone and is an opportunity for someone, right? So you as a chief minister also need to identify which event could be a threat and which event could be a positive event. So now, so the first thing would be the difference between opportunity and threat, the difference between opportunity and threat. And again, you need to match that with your objectives. That's with regard to event identification. Fourth, after these, the points are very easy. Risk assessment, assess how much will be the impact on your thing. For example, as a chief minister, what's the loss to property that you could have? What's the loss of people that you could have, right? What's the loss of vehicles that could be there, right? Loss of revenue to the government in case the city shuts down. All these are the things you need to assess. Only when you assess these things, you can provide a response. So next point is risk response. You need to provide a response. Now, this response also includes risk response includes avoiding, accepting, reducing, or sharing risk. Please look at the last line: avoiding, accepting, reducing, and sharing risk. This itself is a separate question. What are the risk management strategies? That is one question which, if you remember, there were so many T's: treat the risk, transfer the risk, turn back, terminate, tolerate, right? All that answer with so many T's in it. So that's what they are saying. Risk response, you can either treat the risk or turn back or transfer the risk. Okay, that question also we will be doing if time permits. After you decide the risk response, have the control activities in place. Now, control activities, find out employees who are relevant for which post and give them their tasks. Give them their tasks. Okay. So we finished 6 components. Okay. Would you like to revise all the 6 components? What was the first one?
Internal environment.
Yeah, internal environment. The second one?
Objective setting.
Yeah, set your objectives. The third one?
Event identification.
Event identification. Find out what are the things that can happen. Event identification. The fourth one?
Risk assessment.
Risk assessment. The fifth one?
Risk response.
Risk response. Very good. Risk response. The sixth one? Control activities.
Control activities.
Yeah, risk response, control activities. And then we have information and communication. Information. So after you have fixed the roles, okay, this person A is going to do this, person B is going to do that. You need to communicate so that everyone knows that I know that if I have a problem, who should I approach? Right? So you need to have an information and communication flow throughout the organization. And finally, the 8th component is monitoring. Monitoring means throughout, you need to keep seeing whatever you have strategy you have adopted, is that working fine? Number 1. Number 2, if not, you need to make the relevant changes. If not, you need to make the relevant changes to your plans. Correct? Even as a student, we regularly evaluate ourselves, right? That, okay, I'll take up some tests, or am I able to remember? Am I able to apply the concepts practically? Right? So you need to monitor and take corrective actions. Right? That's about the 8 components of enterprise risk management. 8 components. Link it to you becoming a chief minister. Your story, I mean, just to remember, just for you to remember, you could link that. Okay. So let us quickly revise the points. If you're okay with that, any doubts here, Isha?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, awesome. So let us quickly revise the points. The question here, would you like to say the question, please?
Components of ERM.
Components of ERM framework. Yeah. How many components do we have?
8 components.
8 components. Perfect. What's the first one?
Internal environment.
Internal environment. Very good. Second?
Objective setting.
Objective setting. Third?
Event identification.
Event. I hope you're telling without seeing.
No.
No. Okay. Could you try to say without seeing? It's okay.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
First one is internal environment.
Internal environment. Very good. Second one?
And second one is event identification.
Second one is I need to
objective setting.
Objective setting. Third one?
And then event identification.
Yeah. Fourth one?
And then
risk assessment.
And then risk response.
Yeah. First you assess the risk and then you respond to the risk. Right?
And next one is information and communication.
Correct. Before information and communication, I need to have certain control activities.
Control activities.
Then information and communication.
And then monitoring.
Monitoring. Very good. Very good. Very good. Once again, please close your eyes and tell me all the points again. 8 points.
First component is internal environment.
Perfect.
And the next one is objective setting.
Awesome.
And then event identification.
Very
risk
good.
Assessment, risk response, control activities, and information and communication, and then monitoring.
Perfect. Awesome. I'm so happy. Organization should identify controls as per the policy. Okay. Discuss the IT controls that can be implemented as per risk management strategies. Right. So our chapter number 3 is on controls. So when you see this question, you'll get confused that it is chapter number 3. You means everyone, all of us, right? So we'll all get confused that it is chapter number 3. But what you should know is that whenever this risk management, ERM, whenever these risk-related terms comes, we need to know that it is chapter number 1. Okay. Discuss the IT controls that can be implemented as per risk management strategies. Now, there are 2 types of controls spoken about in chapter 1. One is general controls and one is application controls. To understand that, general controls and application controls. General means applicable throughout the organization, be it my mobile through which I'm accessing the company's data, or be it the big mainframe computers in which all the things are stored. So general controls is applicable for throughout the organization. But application controls, the other part, which is application controls, it is specific to certain applications. For example, sales functions or invoicing or payroll, right? These individual applications, it is applicable to those individual functions, Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So two types of control. One is the broad control, which is known as general control. Okay, it's known as ITGC. ITGC, Information Technology General Control. ITGC.
Yes, ma'am.
Now I want you to know two things. ITGC means general controls. General controls means applicable throughout the organization and for all types of systems, right? And in all functions, all they are general controls. Now they are also known as infrastructure controls. They're also known as infrastructure controls. So in your MCQ or in your main question, if they ask you that what are the infrastructure controls, don't get confused that what is this? We've never studied about infrastructure controls. Please note that ITGC is equal to infrastructure controls. Please make a note somewhere in your notes or wherever.
I'm doing.
Awesome. And these are also known as macro controls. Macro, applicable at all levels. Macro and infrastructure. Okay. These are macro in nature and applicable to all the data resources. Now they are as follows. To remember this answer, let us understand an employee. Suppose you're joining suppose say that Ishaq gets recruited in a big company like Hindustan Unilever. Okay, say you get recruited in Hindustan Unilever and it's your first day at work. You have this handsome package after your CA first job, have a very, very, very awesome package. Okay, now your first day at work, tell me what are the things that you think will be applicable on your first day at work?
I'll get to know people.
You'll get to know people, yes. What are the things apart from that that'll happen? Tell me a couple of things.
I know I get to know what I have to do for the company. What's my role?
Yeah, you'll get a brief on what your role is. Next.
What way I can improve myself in that company?
Yeah, you'll get an orientation program with all that. You'll get an orientation program telling you what your role is, what you can do. Yeah. Apart from that, will you be asked to sign some offer letter or some agreement?
Yeah, salary agreement.
Yeah, you'll be asked to sign something. Apart from that, will you get an access card? Or you know that access card that they give to the employees? Yeah,
I know.
You'll be given an access card.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. These are a couple of things that will happen on your first day at work. That you'll be given some training. Yes.
Yes.
On how to do your work. Yeah. So some training, some meeting new people. We'll try to make points with these ideas that we just discussed, right? So information security policy. Yeah, you'll be spoken about the do's and don'ts or the company policies that happen. Like, for example, the number of sick leaves that you can take.
Yes.
Yeah, all of that. So information security policy, ISP. Second is administration access authentication. Will you be given a laptop? Will you be given a system? Yeah.
Yes,
and on the server, your folder will be created so that you can access it. You can save your work, right?
Yes,
so administration, access, and authentication.
Yes,
Separation of key IT functions, which means that if someone is doing the part A of a transaction, for example, making the bill, part B will be done by someone else. For example, getting the material ready as per the bill. Part C, which is dispatching the material, will be done by person 3, right? So because everything is distributed so that no single person has too much power so that he can indulge in any fraud. So separation of IT functions is a very important point. It means that your duties are segregated. Yes, separation of IT functions. Management of system acquisition and implementation. We discussed on the first day, you get an awesome laptop to work on. So management of system acquisition. Change management. They'll tell you that in 2 years, we'll shift you to our main branch in Mumbai, and you have to work out of that place, right? Change management. Yes, backup, recovery, and business continuity. Every day that you do your work, you need to store it in the server so that you do not lose your work. I know of cases where people have worked so hard for months. They worked on some audit and they saved the file in their local, and swish, one day the laptop just died. So all the work done, which is spread over months, everything lost, right? So they'll tell you that no, don't store anything in your local. Please put it on the server. Right? So backup, recovery, Implementation of application software. For example, you're in the tax team, they'll put some tax software in your system. You're in the audit team, they'll put some audit software in your system. So proper development and implementation of application software.
Okay.
Confidentiality, integrity, and availability of software and data files. They'll give you the files that you need to work on. CIA is very, very commonly used phrase in most of your answers. You can comfortably use this: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. All right. Next is
Ma'am,
incident
it's breaking. Your voice is breaking, I guess.
management. In case of any disaster, in case, right? Your agreement. Okay, I hope it's better now.
Yeah, it's okay. It's better.
SL.
It's lagging again. You're stuck. Your screen is stuck.
Ishak, maybe there is some network issue. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you able to hear me now? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear.
Okay. I'm so sorry, the connection went off.
It's okay.
Okay. So going to that, some value-added services. You'll have your service level agreement, SLA, service level agreement, which means that every process in the IT thing will go through an agreement. Okay, will be given in an agreement. For example, who's supposed to execute the function, who's supposed to report it, yeah, who has the right to modify the program. All of that will be given in an SLA, service level agreement, right? User training and qualification. User training and qualification of the personnel. Very good. Now, these are a few general controls that you can write. So to remember this answer, the easy way is employees' first day at work. Employees' first day at work. And here we're talking about the question, which is ITGC. Information Technology General Control. Okay. Very good. Now let us try and recall a few, like not all, but a few of our favorite points. If you can try and recall them. And if you have any doubts, you could shoot the question. Yes, Ishak, any questions?
Oh, sorry, ma'am. I muted myself.
No
I'm good,
problem.
ma'am. I'm good.
No
I'm good.
question?
Yeah, no, ma'am.
Okay, we'll
so
try
far
and
good.
remember a few points with the story, employees first day at work. With that story, we'll try and remember a few points that we can. Okay. First
Okay.
is there needs to be an information security policy. Okay.
Yes.
Third is he will get some access card. So administration, access, and authentication. Fourth is separation of functions. Okay. Fifth is he will get a laptop. So management of system acquisition.
Okay.
Change management. He needs to store his file in a server. Backup, recovery. Right. He will be given some special softwares. So proper implementation of relevant softwares. And availability of the software and data files. Incident response and management. In case he has an issue, who should he report to?
Okay.
Some SLA and some user training. Some SLA point, service level agreement, and some point on user training. Could you please repeat a few points that you can remember on under ITGC?
Information security policy, ISP.
Awesome. Next.
Administration, access and authentication.
Awesome. Please tell without Z. Next.
Separation of IT functions.
Very good. Next. Not in any
Then,
particular order, in any order you can say.
it's backing up
Yeah,
work.
backing up recovery. Very good.
And then SLA,
Some service level agreement point was there. Right. Very good. Next.
incident response.
Incident response and management. Wonderful. Anything else? Change management.
Yeah, change management.
Installation of application software.
Installation of software.
Yeah, availability of software and data files. Very good. Okay, so these points are enough. So we finished the first part, which is the information technology general controls, right? Now we're going on to the second part, which is information technology application controls. Like we discussed, it's relevant to certain applications, not to everything like general controls, but to certain applications. Read the first line, which are specific to the application software to prevent and detect errors. To prevent, detect and correct, PDC, prevent, detect and correct errors. Now these functions could be billing, delivery, payroll, any individual software, finance, anything. These controls are inbuilt in the software. In the application software itself, they are inbuilt so that the software does not go crazy and perform all wrong functions. The software needs to be accurate and reliable, right? So now these controls are built into the application software itself so that the data is processed very accurately and reliably, right? So imagine if you send a message on WhatsApp, you send in group A, but it goes to group B because the application software is not built well. That would be disastrous, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you need to build in certain controls in the software. You understood what is the meaning of application control?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, awesome. So there are only 5 or 6 points under this we'll discuss. Data edits. Data edits means editing is allowed only for certain fields. Tell me something. Let's take WhatsApp. It's our favorite app, or we use it most often. Let us take that as an example. So I'm going to open my WhatsApp screen. Tell me if I'm able to move the, like for example, there is chats here.
No, I couldn't see.
Okay. There is chat, status and calls, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Can I change the format? For example, can I put status first and calls next and chats in the end? Can I change the format of the sub? No.
No.
So yeah, but can I delete a chat?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So data editing of data is allowed only for permissible fields. Editing of any data can be allowed only for certain permissible fields. You can't do editing anywhere and everywhere, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Second is separation of business functions. Separation of business functions. Transaction versus authorization. This is the same point as separation of key IT functions that we discussed in ITGC. Same points. It's basically make a checker concept or segregation of duties concept. Same concept.
Yes,
okay. Then we have balancing of your debits and credits. In any financial application software, the basic check can be that the debit and credit should be balanced. Transaction logging, very important point. Yeah. So any transaction which is made on the system or on the software needs to be identified with who has made it. Have I made the edit or have you made the edit? Has she done some editing? Whoever has done some editing. So if I see any report, I should be able to understand, okay, so these at 3:05 p.m., this change was made by employee number 3. Right? So I need to be able to identify every transaction with the person who's changed. So transaction logging. Yeah, transaction logging. Error reporting. Even when we use Windows or PPT or anything, and it stops working, there's a dialog box which appears. Do you want to send an error report to Microsoft? You remember that? Yeah. So error reporting. Exception reporting. Any exception that has happened, for example, the software There was once when Gmail stopped working. It became a big news. Gmail stopped working. Yeah, so that was an exceptional situation. So all these exceptions are reported to the management. Clear? So if you see that's all. These are the points regarding the application control. So in application control, just write WhatsApp so that you remember. First is data edits. You can't edit every field. Second is separation of business functions. This is a general point under both. So you should remember this. Third is debit and credit totals should be equal.
Balancing.
Yeah, balancing the totals. Third, next is transaction logging, which means that anyone who makes the changes, I need to identify that, okay, this has been made by this person. Transaction logging or event logging. Logging means making a record or having a register. Error reporting, exception reporting, so simple. Error reporting, exception reporting. Discuss all the risk management strategies. Risk management strategies. This is the T question. Yeah, all the answers in this start with T. Risk management strategies. Okay. Yeah. So first is you need to say some 2 lines on what risk management strategy is.
Yes, ma'am.
Tolerate the risk. Okay. Tolerate the risk means accept the risk. Tolerate the risk means accept the risk. For example, some things are out of your control. Yeah, you can't do anything about it, or the impact of the risk is very low. It's okay if the risk is there, it doesn't matter. So
Yes,
if that's the case, then tolerate the risk or accept it.
Yes, ma'am.
Second point is terminate the risk or eliminate the risk. If the impact is so huge, right, or it's too much of a headache to deal with that issue, then what you do is just terminate that risk. For example, if there's a vendor who's cheating the company, yeah, he's raising fake bills or he's giving service which is bad, right? What I can do is instead of having corrective processes such as checking what he's giving, yeah, or informing him to give quality goods, instead of doing all that, I should try and change the vendor. I should try and change them. So terminate that risk. Terminate that risk, right? Okay, right. Terminate the risk. Next, we have transfer the risk, which means transfer it to an insurance company, share the risk with some other party, right? Treat the risk. Treat the risk is as good as terminate the risk, but treat means on a regular basis, you can, like you're living with that risk, but you're treating it. You're taking corrective measures to reduce the effects of the risk. Turn back means when the impact is very low, then just ignore the risk. Ignore the risk.
Yes,
okay, so treat is similar to tolerate. Yeah, very easy answer, but very important. Risk management strategies: treat the risk, terminate the risk, transfer the risk, turn back, tolerate the risk. Tolerate the risk. I would like you to read that answer from your textbook once or from your study material once. We'll connect in the next session. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ishaq, for your time.